And it's a great pleasure and delight to be coming on and speaking on something which is very interesting today. Close to about a year, I've not stepped out to attend networking events like this, and it feels very refreshing for me. So before I start talking, I would want to probably answer the question number 1, which came up today. In terms of HR always being looked at cost center and not a revenue center, right? How can we solve this problem? I think people who feel HR is only a cost center and not a revenue center is a very myopic view. HR should know how to project that they are making money for the company. To take a quick example, as an HR business partner, if you're saving somebody who has resigned, if you're retaining the person, you're saving the cost of refilling the position, right? And as a talent acquisition professional, if you're bringing in talent on board by proactively pipelining candidates against your open positions, you're saving time and money. Quantify that in man hours, man months, and show it to your business leaders that this is what I've saved for you. Money saved is money earned. And this is how an HR professional can add economic value to the role that you're playing. And for that, you need to have skills which is consultative in nature, and you need to know how to create data-based evidences to counter your business leaders' misconceptions. If you're simply going and talking to people without any backup, they will continue to talk that HR is not adding value, right? Does it answer your question? Thank you. Right. So the topic given to me is how can we improve productivity and reduce attrition. Very, very interesting topic. And in today's challenging business scenario, a lot of companies are struggling how to manage people. I think people-related conversations are the primary boardroom conversations for leaders today. And they are all trying to see what are the better ways to engage talent, attract them, engage them, retain them, and try to see how they can get diverse talent back to them even after they leave the firms. So that's the level at which companies are looking at. And we are actually in a very, very volatile and uncertain environment today, where instead of recruiting people, retaining them is better. So people keep saying that retaining is the new way of recruiting. So that's what it is today. So I am going to talk about some of the clinical approaches to see how we can look at attrition, how can we look at productivity improvement in a very different lens that not too many of us in the HR might have even thought through. These are some of the business challenges today, some of the business demands every company is facing is what I want to talk about. If you look at, first thing is client-centered approach. When Mr. Goel was talking, he said his strategy now changed, and his client base is different. He identified that his corporate customers are the new clients for him. And similarly, all of us are trying to move client-centric to create great experiences, from client satisfaction to client delight to client ecstasy. We want to achieve anything superlative for your clients. And another challenge that is being posed for all the organizations is volatility. the change, the kind of resilience that company needs to bring in to adapt and cope with drastic changes that are hitting companies from becoming productive. Digital transformation is another challenge that is posing serious threats to people. The way digital transformation is happening at the pace, people are struggling to cope up with that pace. Additionally, when you look at certain value-based culture that the company needs to also carry, all these are some of the business problems that today's organizations are facing. And coming back to productivity and retention, I'm going to take a very clinical approach in telling you what is that we should be doing different and thinking different. So during my stint in EY, one of the beautiful things that I learned is asking disruptive questions. When you ask disruptive questions, you get disruptive questions always lead to better answers, and better answers always lead to better ways of working. So the moment you think of disruptive thought, so this topic came to my mind, and I started thinking, how can we solve this problem? See, why attrition happens? Most of us know. People leave for salaries, people leave for job satisfaction, people leave for better work-life balance, people leave for more benefits, and people leave for other demographic reasons like maybe location, relocation, and other personal constraints. This is a no-brainer. All the HR team members sitting here in this room, all of us know this. And if I come and tell you the same thing, that you have to do this on these areas to retain talent, it is going to be a sheer waste of all your time, right? So what I've done is I'm taking a risk-based approach to understanding this and looking at it from a very different lens. From a conventional approach to a value-added approach is what I'm going to talk about to all of you. So this is the general push and pull factors that I want to talk of. I don't know how many of you are able to see this. Can we move this a little this side? Yeah. Okay. So is the presentation visible to all of you? Right. Thank you. So the push and pull factors. So the push and pull factors means what? Factors that influence people and attract them is your pull factors. Factors that make people leave your organization is your push factors. And these are all generic factors that we all know of. And the moment we think of retention, what comes to our mind is this. The moment we think of how to attract people to join us, the pull factor comes into mind. But what I am going to deep dive into is something that most of us wouldn't have really delved into. But those problems, most of us would have been suffering, and we wouldn't have pertinently spoken about those aspects. This is the risk-based approach that I want to take. Let me give you a quick example of how in people and culture you can look at a risk-based approach. An example that I can take off is defining risk. How do we define risk? Anything that poses threat to an organization's existence, its revenue, its reputation, and its customer satisfaction is called as a risk for a company. It can be people-related risk, process-related risk, or other political and economic and socio risk. Now, in our context, the risk that we are talking of is what are the risks that we should think of which will lead our people's productivity to become lower. And what are the risks that we are talking of which will push our people out of the company? And that's what we're going to be talking. So end of my presentation, I would want to leave you all with a thought. How can organizations move towards retaining people by looking at conventional approach to making them more risk appetite averse? There are two types of risks. One is apparent risk, which probably is very pertinent. A lot of us know what they are, and that's what we looked at from a push and pull factor standpoint. And unexposed risk, unintelligible risk. And this is something not too many of us realize. And these are risks that are probably underlying triggers for employees to leave, which they don't mention in the exit forms, or neither do they talk openly. And any other hidden causes that they don't really want to talk about, fearing relationship. There could be aspects which are unconscious actions which happen in the company that people don't know that they're doing this mistake because of which employees are leaving. It could also be factors which are really ignored conveniently. The first factor I'm talking of is, what if incompetent leaders are leading the firm? Risk number one, right? Most of us would have come through this. We would have leaders who we feel is incompetent. You would see a lot of websites where you give feedback about companies like your Ambition Box or Indeed or your Glassdoor. The first thing it talks about a company is how many of you approve your CEO. Why should it be like that? Because he's the leader of the firm. And if he or she is incompetent, then there is going to be a problem. So the first factor is leadership incompetency. And many a times, leaders, it is not that they want to be incompetent. And hence, I'm bringing in a thought process called blind spot, leadership blind spot. And how do you uncover those blind spot? I don't know, in your MBA curriculum, have you, do you have something called Johari window? Yes, you have. And this is the concept that I'm talking of. When a leader understands Johari window well, and he is able to embrace, he or she is able to embrace that, then he can uncover a lot of blind spots. So what are those blind spots we are looking at? Lack of self-awareness. And my friend earlier Vikas spoke of generation gap. And this generation gap can be one of the blind spots for a leader. His expectations from the talent which has come on board very recently, your generation Z and generation Alpha going to be coming, there will be vast difference. And that gap, leaders don't realize and understand that. That's one of the biases. And then also having, that autocritic way of looking at it, that I know everything. Brightest of the idea can probably come from not so smart people in your team. You should never ignore those as a leader. And leaders are not those people who create ideas. Leaders are those who create a conducive environment where your entire team can generate ideas. If you talk, there is one perspective. If you listen, there are multiple perspectives. And that is how I see leaders may have to be. So how do we uncover these unconscious biases? How do we uncover these blind spots that leaders have? That's what is given in the uncovering blind spots slide that I put in. Self-introspection. A leader needs to continuously keep doing self-introspection. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Unless we have the habit of seeking feedback, you will never get to know some of the blind spots, which is why I put in the Johari window here. Those that others know about you and you never realized, you should ask feedback and get to know what those blind spots are. And hence seeking feedback is very critical. And then leadership capability assessments and development interventions will help a greater deal in terms of upskilling leaders to match the new generation workforce thought process. And next risk aspect that I'm going to talk of, a very favorite and interesting topic. How many of us in our previous jobs have left because of managers? Can I simply have a show of hands? Many of us? In a positive way, great. That's nice to know. Research indicates that a whopping 57% of the talent has left in the year 2022 because of a burnt relationship between them and their reporting supervisor, which is an alarming number of people are leaving because of the discomfort that their reporting supervisors are creating. And I have conceived a model from Great Managers Institute, a study conducted by them, and this is the model. And this model talks of 3 pillars: connect, develop, inspire. Connect is being transparent with your people. Be open, approachable, and honest as a reporting supervisor. And create a platform where your team member comes and talks about some of the flaws and mistakes without having fear of being judged or retaliated. And ensure that you communicate bad things first. Even if you delay good things for a few days, it doesn't matter. But bad things need to be communicated first. And always be a trustworthy person for your subordinates. These are some of the ways in which a supervisor can embrace better communication with his teams. And develop. Always have a focus on developing your own people. If they grow, you will grow. Supervisors who are able to attract and retain talent are those that focus on developing their people, their capability, making them realize that they could do something that they never thought they would otherwise do if you didn't prompt them to do so. And that's the beauty of a reporting supervisor. Create platforms and give them positions which can harness their strengths. Coach them, give them right feedback, and mentor them so they can develop on their weaknesses. Take care of their career growth the way you would take care of your own growth. These are things that comes under development. Third thing, inspire. Inspire your people through your leadership. Inspire by walking the talk. Inspire by being consistent. Inspire by rewarding the right behavior and performance. Inspire by making them do something that they have never done in the past. Inspire by rewarding and recognizing the right people in the team. And motivate them, reward them, recognize them frequently. These are the 3 things, 3 key pillars that will help you retain talent. And wherever you are not happy with the way your manager managed, learn from it, not to do that to your subordinate. And wherever you're happy the way your manager managed you, continue to do so and give more to your teams. And this is where you can create a difference as a supervisor. A people manager, a great people manager, can be a talent promoter. And that is something that is a risk that most companies do not identify. So if your people are leaving and without quoting reasons, then it could be that you have to train your people managers. One way to look at it is practically how to change this. Do an assessment of your people managers. Ask them to do a self-assessment of some of these critical areas. And then you do an assessment from their teams as to what they feel about their leader on those qualities. And match the following. The difference is the people manager blind spot. Any manager who says that I'm great in inspiring my team, but the team feels contradictory, which means that the manager needs to be coached in that area. And that's his blind spot. This is how you can probably make this risk, mitigate this risk by doing this. The next risk is toxic culture. A lot of us would have seen that some of your previous supervisors mostly might have created a very hostile environment for all of you so that you can't continue and thrive in a company. You decide that you quit and move to a different place. Either by withdrawing the support they give you, or by not acknowledging you for your work that you did, or by making things more difficult for you to achieve, or by constantly criticizing you so your self-esteem is killed. These are toxic cultures. And this toxic culture kills you within the office, and it also travels along with you to your house. So much so that you start frowning at your children at home, start shouting at your wife, parents. You start spending sleepless nights. I have seen employees coming to me that I can't sleep because my manager did this to me. So, toxic culture is something that all of us need to be aware of. How can we overcome toxic culture? What are some of the key elements that we need to focus in building a culture of an organization is something that my next slide is going to focus on. Leadership, we've spoken enough of it already. People capability. How can you develop your people's capability? By training them, by giving them, identifying the strengths and weaknesses, and ensure that those capabilities that they need to hone should be developed rightly. And putting in a right career development framework. What is career development framework? In a company, a career development framework means if I'm in a role or a designation, where do I move next? What is my vertical and horizontal growth path in this current role? What is the minimum number of years that I should be spending in a particular designation? And what competency levels am I supposed to be working on right now? And what competency level I should be working on if I have to get to the next role? Defining all of this clearly is nothing but your career development framework. And if you have a clear career development framework, your employees know what to do in order to get promoted, what to do in order to move to a different role. That needs to be clearly distinguished. Relationships. All of us in an organization like good conducive culture. We want to collaborate. We want to actually create an environment where people can thrive, they can give their best. And for that, relationship is the foundation. And people and culture function is responsible for creating great relationships in the firm. By making people collaborate, by making people interdependent. If you think I'm always self-reliant, then which means that you're arrogant. So you should definitely ask for help when needed. You should help people without being asked. And that's collaboration. Building teams is very different from building families. Organizations should move away from creating teams to creating families. What happens in a family? When your wife falls sick, you take care of babysitting. And when you are outside working on some travel, your wife does the job that you're doing. So you try and see how you can reverse the roles when it is required in a family. And there are people to do your job as backups in the family. But when it comes to organization, sadly, whenever we go on leave, 2 days, 3 days, you have to come back and do your job on your own. When you build this culture of collaboration, there you will build this culture of a family. And you know when somebody is going away on leave, you take the burden. And when you are going on leave, without being asked, the other person will take it. That's how you need to create families, not teams. Collaboration. And workload. If employees do not know what lies ahead of them for that particular day, it becomes very difficult for them to plan. Create a proper workload. Additionally, embrace work-life integration. People always keep talking about work-life balance. Work-life balance does not exist anymore. Work-life integration is what is going to be embraced going forward. What is an example of work-life integration? I'm a recruiter. I'm supposed to be coming on Saturday for a recruitment drive. I'm supposed to be traveling to probably from here, maybe Karnataka, you look at Manipal, you have to travel to Manipal. Pick up a Friday, pick up a Monday, travel on a Saturday to Manipal, spend time with your family for 2 days there in a nice beach, go for a recruiting drive on Monday, finish off your task, Monday evening travel with your family back home. That's work-life integration. You don't feel the pinch of leaving your family behind and going and working on a weekend. At the same time, you're achieving your job that you want to achieve, plus your family is also happy, you spend time closer to them. Similarly, in office, when you're sitting and paying some bills, personal errands, which you're taking care of, that's work-life integration. Right? So think of that. Controls. Without controls, nothing will exist. If you don't have the right controls in processes, in policies, in the way you look at everything, it becomes tough for you to manage a company and manage profitability. Controls. Why are internal auditors in place in most companies? Why do statutory auditors come and look at your financial statements? Why can't they assume that everything is right? Because they know that if that assumption will kill us sometime. Controls, very, very critical for an organization's existence. And people and culture practices, state-of-art practices, continue to keep embracing those practices in order to ensure that we have the right practices which improve productivity and improve retention. Having a flawed appraisal system is the next risk I want to talk about. Having a flawed appraisal system means what? End of the day, your employee and manager does not come into an agreement on a rating. I rate you A, and you think that you deserve better than that. So this disagreement leads in resentment, and then people leave. Why disagreement? What can we do to avoid these disagreements? That's a big risk. And this presentation, this slide addresses those risks. What can be making a performance appraisal system a flawed appraisal system? Right? Absence of quantifiable metrics. I don't know how many of you are statistics students here. What is data validity, scalability? We all know what is data validity, scalability. If two people are appraising the same person independently, the views have to be the same. But on the contrary, if it is different, then the appraisal system is flawed. Only way to make your appraisal system strong is to include quantifiable key performance indicators which are measurable. That's white and black. There are no two ways about it. And a performance appraisal system should always have components which describe the what's and components that describe the hows of work. That's the best performance appraisal system that you could ever design for your employees. If you have to achieve 80% of your goals in terms of filling positions on time, then there are no two ways about it. There cannot be disagreement on it. If you have achieved 70%, then your performance is here. If you achieved 60%, your performance is here. If you achieved 90%, your performance is here. That's so clear. Sans ambiguity. And that's the power of having quantifiable KPIs in your appraisal system. Treating appraisals like a tick in the box. Many of our reporting supervisors would have even done this in the past that we've seen. You just take it as a tick in the box. But when managers and reporting supervisors take this appraisal as a tool to develop their people, the entire outlook changes. The seriousness on appraisal changes. And the way you will do your appraisal will also change. The sanctity of conducting an appraisal becomes very different. Constantly changing KPIs. What if you're asked to travel to Delhi and you're stopped on the way in Hyderabad? I'm asking you to go to Kolkata. And then you're traveling all the way, you reached Vizag. I'm saying no, you come back to Chennai. That is what it feels like when you change KPIs of your people. Inevitable circumstances can still be understood. But when you're changing KPI, give them that benefit that yes, your goalpost changed during this year. And that benefit has to be passed on. Favoritism and nepotism is another issue that kills the appraisal system. The moment you have a favorite person credited from a performance standpoint, great performers in your team will get demotivated. While they will not come and tell you or question you, sometimes people do so, but 2 out of 10 people question, 8 out of 10 people silently quit and go. That's a reality. Personal and cultural biases. I appraise somebody on performance because I'm biased. He comes from the same college that I did my education. He comes from the same community that I come from. He probably worked in the same company as me before. And then he and me are like-minded. These are personal and cultural biases, which probably will be detrimental to appraising people. I think these are some of the key aspects that we need to focus from a risk standpoint, from a performance appraisal. So last, before I leave, I'll reiterate quickly. When we look at retention in a very practical way, we will only think of what needs to be done. But when you look at it from a risk angle, you will think about what did we not think, what did we not do properly that needs to be now fixed. What have we not realized which needs to be realized? And that's the right approach I think we need to take in order to improve productivity and retain talent. Thank you. And questions? Please, go on. Sorry? Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
When you are awake for 14 hours in a day on an average, and you are in office for 9 hours and then you travel for 1.5 hours, I think the balance is already gone, first of all. But I wanted to ask you something about, like, let's take example a company like Amazon, where you have core operation processes, right, and you have systems and processes in place which try to track that how much time you are active on a system as well, right? So when we have these kind of processes and place, which are where HR is also part of it, placing them in systems. So how do you manage that? And when we are having these challenges, how do we, as HR, go back to the employee and say that, no, we are trying to bring you the work-life balance or work-life integration, or, you're going to have a good life balance. So what do you think about that?
Okay. I'm seriously not an advocate of making people work for 14 hours, right? So,
I said 14, when they are awake for 14 hours in a day, 9 hours in work.
Okay. So 9 hours at work. 9 hours at work is still okay. I mean, you take your lunch breaks and you take other breaks, and, you kind of take your personal calls in your office. So 9 hours is actually not 9 hours. And, it's the way we look at it. When you think, your outlook has to change the way you look at work-life balance, right? The moment you keep complaining, everything becomes a problem. And, every single situation becomes a challenge. And the moment you think practically, as to really, are you spending the entire 8 hours productively and sitting and working? The answer, most of us know that it is no. And if you're working from home, are we working the entire 8 hours? The answer all of us know is actually, no. So in such scenario, employees practically need to think that, does pampering us really make sense in terms of work-life balance and all those aspects. So that practical thought process will help you overcome this thought of I'm overworking. See, our mind is actually like a monkey. There is constructive and destructive thought, both playing havoc in your mind at the same time. The monkey that you feed will continue to survive. So it's all about thought. Yes.
The slides which
Sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah.
Hi, can you all hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So in the slide which you have presented, actually I have a couple of things. So first thing is, most of the employees leave the organization because of the issues with the managers.
Yeah.
So how many of the associates are willing to raise this issue with HR partners? See, every coin has two sides. If the management is not supporting to the associate, and even associate have to go and raise their issue with the HR partners. I mean, how many of the associates are willing to address this issue? See, I'm having this issue with my manager. If he is behaving with me like this, I can't work. We ourselves are we say that, no, what if I say how my career will be? Out of insecurity and out of fear, we ourselves won't express our concerns to the higher management, thinking that they might fire me or it might affect my career. So I am part of separations team. Actually, I started my career with exits team itself. So I know most of the employees raise this issue in their exits, stating that dissatisfied with manager and all. But instead of raising a resignation, it's actually a good sign if they directly voice out it with the HR partner. And the other thing is, the issue with HR partners is like, for 1,000 employees, there will be 1 or 2 HR partners. So if you ping the HR partner, he will be showing busy, and by the time the HR partner gives the response, associate mind gets changed, and he will be going for termination, or he might be getting the other job as well. So the process needs to be changed, like from the roots onwards it needs to be changed, because when an associate says that okay, we will revoke your, we will give you promotion, but you have to revoke, but the time frame, see, this is appraisal has been done, you need to wait for 3 to 4 months. So he would be thinking that what if I stay here for 3-4 months, what about the package that I'm getting other side? So doing the things faster, analyzing with the contacting the associates would be much healthy. Which it would be much good choice for the companies to retain the employees. And we also know that even I shared this attrition report with all the stakeholders in my organization or to the clients on a regular basis. But the impact or the decisions will take 6 to 8 months. So there we are lagging behind. So these are the other things. And the other thing, mental health. Every organization actually takes care of their associates, but we don't reach out to them. We also receive Outlook emails stating that mental awareness, we will be having a session with psychiatrists and all. But how many of we see that email, or how many of we actually look into it? So I feel like the mistake is from both sides. So how do you say, what's your point on this?
Right, okay. So I'll actually convert your questions into 3 parts. One is you're talking about the discomfort with supervisors, and people leave because of that. Precisely the reason why the data shows that 57% of people last year left because of the discomfort with their reporting supervisor. And to overcome that, I spoke of some 3 critical pillars that companies need to focus. 1, obviously to focus on that. 2, to create platforms where employees can anonymously voice out concerns with their reporting supervisors. I think companies can continue to do that. But at the same time, you will also have concerns which probably come by way of personal retaliation against a supervisor. You could all, have those kind of concerns as well. There are employees who probably raise concerns which are not true. This also happens. One of the ways in which you can combat the relationship issues with your manager is to actually have a feedback mechanism which is probably anonymous, is something that I told you. And another way is to make it mandatory for appraising all people managers based on their people scores. You should ask their team members to do a small NPS score which can help them assess how a people manager is doing. You can include that as part of the people manager's developmental plan or coaching plan, whatever it can be. So developing your people supervisors' capabilities in terms of managing their teams better will solve this problem, whatever it is. The second question is, there are very few HR members in your company who are dealing with, say, hundreds of employees. So I had this issue in one of my previous firms, and I actually invented something called as HR catalysts. And people who are passionate about the relationships, people who are passionate about connecting, and people who are people sensitive, we pick up those individuals and give them a role of a catalyst. And they will be the voice of, say, about 100 people, 200 people in a group or a particular team. And those catalysts will be your extended arms of the HR business partner. And instead of searching for an HR business partner when you have concerns, you can voice out your concerns to those people catalysts. And those people catalysts can assume office once in a year, you can keep changing their portfolios once in a year. And end of that particular year, you can reward those people catalysts with a certificate and probably a cash reward saying you played a people catalyst role for us this year, whoever is doing well. Right? So this is one way that obviously you can't hire 10 and 20 HR people. The company is worried about costs. One way to combat this is use your people sensitive individuals in the business group, pick them up, make them catalysts. Does it answer your question? Thank you. Sure.